Whenever you engage with a particular group, there are going to be areas of disagreements between you and them that need to be understood for thoughtful and productive conversations to take place. If the group you're talking to puts you on the defense by claiming certain things about your belief, providing answers to these objections is how the Bible tells Christians to engage with these sort of encounters. In 1 Peter 3 and verse 15 we read, "But sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and always be ready to give a defense to everyone who asks you a reason for the hope that is in you, with meekness and fear." Now, these 2 points the Apostle Peter made as to how we are to give a defense for the reasons we put our hope in Jesus are key. Meekness, not weakness, but meekness is a term used to describe strength under control. In fact, in ancient literature, it was more commonly used to refer to a war horse. They certainly had strength, but they also had the training to know when and where to use it the right way in panic-inducing situations like combat. Now, on the other hand, fear isn't used in the sense of, timidity, like, what if I'm wrong? It's okay, I don't want to offend you or anything. No. Fear in this sense is referring to respect for the one we're talking to. If I have a fear of a rattlesnake, I'm going to try to keep a positive relationship between me and it as much as depends on me. If it's agitated, I'll give it a wide berth. If it's not, I'll still give it a wide berth because I don't want it to be agitated. But that's out of respect for the creature, not necessarily a phobia of snakes. So understand that if I didn't have any fear in my defense, I wouldn't bother to give it in the first place. Well, who cares if this person believes differently than what I know to be reality? Why should I care if they're wrong? This isn't the attitude to have. We engage because we respect people enough, regardless of their religious background, to hear out what they say and then give a reasoned response as to their objections and claims. That's what we're going to do here today. In my brief encounters with the online Odinist community, there have been a series of cliches and accusations against Christianity that, in an attempt to undermine it, have pointed out more inconsistencies in their own religion than mine. So note this comparison first before we get into it. A person with no fear for the Odinists leaving these comments couldn't care less about their claims and would just move on with their day. I'm not like that. I consider these Odinists worth the time and effort because they are made in the image and likeness of God. That makes them valuable and eternally worth the effort on my part, basically because Jesus exerted the same effort in order to make a relationship with him possible. I seek to emulate that, and if you call yourself a Christian, so should you. Likewise, a person with no meekness would just return their nonsense objections and profanity with the same nonsense and profanity and just leave us both angry and uninformed about each other's beliefs than when we started. I'm not like that either. I'm going to hear what they say about Christianity, where and when they object to it, and if they believe it's false, on their terms, either, catch this, explain where and why they don't stand up to scrutiny, and make sure I do so with information, with standards rather, that would apply to us both. Logic, research, and consistency. If the ideas themselves are incoherent, they would benefit from discovering that under the respectful assumption they actually believe what they're saying. If their claims of Christianity are inaccurate, it would also be helpful for them to see where in Christianity they made the mistake to accomplish that goal. And if their claims against Christianity would discredit their own beliefs in Asatru, if applied to themselves, they would benefit from finding a better objection than shooting themselves in the foot. This is strength under control. I'm attacking the argument, not the person making the argument. Likewise, there are arguments that I have heard most often from this particular group, and in time perhaps more may come up, but for those who want to minister to the Odinist, to a follower of Asatru, a pagan in general, or even atheists and non-Christians as a whole, they will use these same kind of attacks against Christianity, and I know that from experience. So take note in how I am addressing them. No, you don't have to get the transcript on and then copy and paste these responses. Think about how I'm thinking through their approaches. Listen to those that are making the objections and make sure you can point out where and why these fall short in reality. And for those who are making these objections, you would benefit from listening to the study if for no better reason than to find better objections, because all you're going to find is these answers. And if you ignore them, then that's on you. But if you want to find a actual objection that's going to bear some weight, these would not be recommended, at least as far as what you're currently employing. So objection number 1, in the top 3 Odinist objections to Christianity. The objection comes in various forms, but essentially down to the marrow, it is that Christians have done evil things. Examples given are burning pagans at the stake, priests molesting children, destroying pagan altars, and on it goes. There are 2 main problems with this objection, and will ultimately produce our answer. First, Christianity isn't based on the behavior of Christians. It's defined by the example of Jesus of Nazareth and the written records of his life and the eyewitnesses that followed him. So, for example, if someone were to say that, you believe a religion that molests children and burns people at the stake, the appropriate response would be, when did Jesus burn a pagan at the stake? I don't recall Jesus molesting anybody, let alone children. He was never married, so he didn't live life in such a way where sex was a part of it. If you could show me where Jesus did these things, then we'd have a talk. But if you could only point to the actions of Christians, I can show you where Jesus never did those things. They were bad Christians. So note that as well. Also note that if they, and rightfully so, disapprove of things like burning people at the stake and destroying altars and molesting children, etc., these are things to be concerned about, to say the least, especially if they're not Christian. But understand, the underlying issue is that something's not true because I don't like it. Christianity could be true even if it did things that you disapproved of. Truth isn't based on the lack of approval or abundance thereof. So we need a better standard. The answer then would be, how many pagans did Jesus burn at the stake? Did Jesus destroy any pagan temples? And if these Christians, quote unquote, were actually following Jesus, then they wouldn't have done those things. If you want to know what Christianity is all about, look at Jesus. I'm sure he's just as upset about the behavior of his followers as they are. And before you turn to the Old Testament and say it says destroy their altars and sacred stones, who is the they? Who was being addressed in those passages? The Canaanites were using those altars to burn children alive, to institute child prostitution in worship of Ashtoreth and Moloch, and, of course, they were not to follow their example for obvious reasons. So make sure that that's taken into consideration as well. Objection number 2. Christians copied prior beliefs. Now, if this was true, then the examples would be as follows. Paganism predates Christianity. Therefore, elements of it seen in Christianity came from pagan sources. If a religion's just a copy of an earlier religion, then the only truth in it would be what was copied from that earlier religion. The problem is that early doesn't necessarily mean correct. If I hand in my homework blank before anyone else, it's not going to get a better grade than the person who took their time to answer each question carefully. Also note that the example usually given, that the death and return, not necessarily a resurrection, but the return of Balder in Norse mythology, recorded in Voluspo and also again in Gylfaginning. The interesting detail about that is the earliest written record of Balder in the prose Eddas, where his death and revival are recorded, date to around 1,300 years after the time of Christ. That's a full 1,000 years or millennium after the first Bible was discovered that detailed Jesus' death and resurrection. And also 1,270 years after the event itself. So you're not going to be able to make a lot of ground with that. If the only evidence we have that people taught this was 1,000 years after our earliest Bible, and 1,300 years with some change included of the events of Christianity themselves, it seems like Odinism copied Christianity by that logic, not the other way around. So the answer to this is, can you show me some evidence that prove this is the case? Everything we have about Odinism dates to a very long time after Christianity, and generally I can't copy from something that won't exist for another 1,000 years. Then finally, the third and most common objection I receive from Odinists, and that I encourage you all to be prepared for, whether you're talking to followers of Asatru, atheists, or just generally non-believers in general, are that you are mean. You make videos, respond to comments in a way that make me feel bad. And the name calling goes on from there. The problem, and I only need to really point out one, is that the ad hominem fallacy is where you attack the man rather than the claims the man is making. If you discredit the person who made the statement, that doesn't do anything to the statement. Say, for example, you call me a liar, and everyone believes it. The individual making these videos is a liar. He is one who lies. And this liar says 2 + 2 = 4. But a liar said it, so does that change fundamentally the nature of mathematics because it came from a liar? No, liars can tell the truth. You've proven nothing as far as dismissing the argument. But if you want to make these emotional appeals, understand you'll accomplish a lot more if you attack the argument itself. And so the response would be, let's pretend all that's true. I admit, I'm mean, I'm a liar, I'm a fraud, angry carpenter, all this other stuff. What does that have to do with what I just said? Can you answer my question or disprove my statement, or you're only here to talk about what you think about me? We will wait to see if this list is updated, but so far, these are the ones I would recommend you are most prepared for. And to my Odinist friends that are continuously employing these standards, I recommend you find better ones because we want to have good conversations with you. And I'm not saying we in a general sense. There are people here that care about you, that want to see you in heaven with them, and have more reasons to believe that their religion is true than yours, and we're able, willing, and equipped to show you why. So if you're interested in truth, by all means, we look forward to more conversations, but if you're not, this is what you're going to get from us. We'll continue responding the right way because you're attacking us the wrong way. If you have sincere questions or comments thereof, ask them. I'd be more than happy to engage. If you would like to know more or perhaps have your own objections that you've received from various groups, Islam, for example, I'd be more than happy to discuss those. But I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to this study. I want to remind you that Jesus loves you and he has far more to offer you than feelings. He cares about reality. And so, as Christians, we should love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, to know how to give a reason for the hope that is within us, and to those who don't believe Christianity, understand what meekness and fear mean. We're not going to cower before you. We're going to answer you. But understand as well, it doesn't mean we hate you. In fact, it's proof that we care. God bless you.